Hello everyone, this is Eric Maxwell with Privacera. Thank you for joining me for our series on Apache Ranger. In this first installment, we're going to do an introduction to Apache Ranger. We'll talk about the current state, we'll take a look at the history of Ranger and how it came to be, we'll discuss the Ranger architecture, and then we'll talk about components that have been extended to integrate with Apache Ranger. Apache Ranger is an open source authorization system that provides access control and security for big data environments. The project was originally created by Don Bosco Durai and Balaji Ganesan, and it entered the Apache incubator in 2014. Today, Apache Ranger runs in over 500 enterprises, secures many petabytes of data, manages tens of thousands of policies within a single instance, and has more than 70 committers and contributors in the open source community. The history of Apache Ranger starts back in 2011 when Hadoop exited the Apache incubator. Balaji Ganesan and Don Bosco Durai realized that there was a security gap in the original Hadoop implementation. So they founded a company called XA Secure in order to close that gap. 2 years later, in 2014, XA Secure was acquired by Hortonworks. The code that Ganesan and Durai had created at XA Secure was contributed to the open source community in the form of the Apache Ranger project. In 2015, Apache Ranger exited the incubator and became a top-level project. In 2016, Ganesan and Durai again discovered a gap in the current Apache Ranger and founded a company called Privacera to integrate Ranger with cloud components. So why was the creation of Apache Ranger so important? Traditionally, data processing was done in enterprise data warehouses. These enterprise data warehouses had been around for a long time. They had been hardened for data protection and security. They had mature access controls and capabilities, supported multiple roles and users within varying levels of the organization that needed different authorizations, and a single EDW could support many use cases. The initial versions of Hadoop were not geared towards multi-tenancy. They had a lack of data protection and security. They didn't have access control capabilities beyond just who could access the cluster. And there was no support for multi-tenancy, multiple roles or users with varying levels of authorization. Ranger was created to fill that gap and bring that data security to this new distributed data processing environment. On the Ranger server, there are many components that work in combination to bring authorization to the various components that integrate. First, there's the admin server. The admin server serves up the administrative user interface and provides a point of entry to create policies within the ecosystem. The second component is the policy server. This is the piece that actually serves the policies to the downstream plugins and stores all of the policies in a relational database policy store. The next component is the audit server. The audit server indexes audit events and provides them for retrieval by the admin user interface or other mechanisms. These audits are indexed in Solr so that they can be retrieved very quickly. The last component is the key management store. The key management store implements the Hadoop Key Provider API and stores encryption keys in a key store database. All of these components are also available via REST API. Ranger uses a plugin architecture in order to allow other services to integrate seamlessly with the authorization controls. In this example, we have a Hive server that has a Ranger plugin integrated with it. The Ranger plugin takes over all of the authorization functions within the Hive server. It pulls the policies from the policy server and caches them locally. When a user accesses a resource through the Hive server, audits are pushed back to the audit server in the Ranger server for indexing. As you can see from this list, there are a number of services that have integrated with Apache Ranger. The list on the left indicates the services that are listed on the Apache Ranger website as integrated with Apache Ranger from the beginning. These include the common services that you might expect like Hadoop, HBase, Hive, etc. The list on the right indicates additional components that have implemented a Ranger plugin to use authorization controls from the Ranger ecosystem within their services. These would include things like Starburst Presto, Apache Kylin, Dremio, and Apache NiFi. As you can see from this list, there are several components that have been integrated with Ranger, and this is not even a complete list. There are other services out there that implement a Ranger plugin to integrate and use authorization controls from a single location. So this concludes our introduction to the Apache Ranger project. If you're interested in understanding how Privacera is extending Ranger to include cloud components, please visit us at privacera.com. Thank you.